Hi there, thank you so much for clicking the thumbnail and being interested in my work. In this video I share with you my techniques and tips on how I achieved this pet portrait of Tilly. She is a rescue dog, around 11-year-old mixed breed of Yorkshire Terrier and Cairn Terrier. The new owners have seen a massive improvement in her health as she was very nervous and she lost most of her teeth. It was such a joy to create this portrait for them. Be sure to watch it right through till the end, because here and there I'll be slowing things down in real time so you can take a closer look. So let's dive in and take a look. The surface I'm using is a pastel matte board, dark grey. I'm just putting a centre mark in there. That's what I work from when I'm doing freehand. So that's all I work from, is a centre point, and then I do the same centre point in the reference image, which has been scaled up to the same size. Because it's the same scale, I can use the edges of the board and the top and bottom of it as well to find the area. So really what I'm doing first is establishing some marks, keeping a very loose approach, so the grip of the pencil is quite away from the point. So I'm putting loose marks, so hardly putting any pressure at all on that pastel mat, and just basically getting that shape, the outside shape first. So you always work big and then go smaller and smaller. Now to erase the marks, I'm using a kneadable eraser, Pastel, excellent rubber. I've tried all sorts of different erasers and this one beats the lot. It don't damage the surface at all. What I'll do with the eraser is use it as a tool actually to sculpture the actual marks and shapes. So I'm not too worried about putting a mark down wrong, because I can just sculpture it with the eraser. So it's just a case of just being really free with it. Going through this outline pretty quick because I've got loads of videos on my channel. There's actually a playlist full of videos how to draw the outline freehand, and some of them are actually pure real time. I'll leave you a link in the description below, so if you want to check that out later, be sure to do that. Slowing it down to real time, just to show you one of the methods I do with this, is to measure the width of it against something which is the height. So you're comparing one measurement with the other and making sure it's the same on the reference as it is on the actual painting you're doing. It's all relative, so it doesn't matter if the image is smaller, it's just relative, so you're getting an idea of what size it is. It's a similar sort of way you would do it if you're drawing it from life. Now I always find that keeping your reference image smaller than what you're actually drawing, so you can see the whole image, makes it easier to find the proportions. So that's why I always do, is always have the reference image smaller. Now I use the actual oil painting brush here to get the line of the vertical plane, so you're comparing with that. So you can use other tools than pencils, you know, obviously if the pencil's not long enough, I use like a brush. Now here's a selection of pencils I'll be using for the underdrawing. Just keeping things nice and simple. So first of all then, with the underdrawing, it's just correcting the outline and getting the shapes in the correct place. So just relax and just block in these basic sort of colour shapes, and don't worry too much about the detail or the value or the chroma, and it's really nice to actually get the chance just to have a play and be loose. It's a case of experimenting as well with a few colours. Now that blue didn't work, the ultramarine, so I've used a different blue here. It's more towards like a Prussian blue if you think of an oil painting set. Just mixing a bit of yellow ochre with that, because it's like a greeny bluey tinge to this area of the actual face. Now I'm using the Carbothello white just to slightly draw in the actual direction of the hair and the shapes of the hair, and then just glaze over the top. So I'm using the white glaze, using the brown there with the blue to create natural grey shadows. Now for those I'm using dark ultramarine and a dark brown, but then I'm using that sort of warmish blue there, like a Prussian blue, around the top of the nose there. basically using brown and blue to create natural tones of grey. So if you want a warmer grey, you can use more brown. If you want a cooler grey, use more blue. So you can sort of change it up like that. Using the Carbothello white just to mark the area where all these sort of hairs start, so get the basic shape. So just relax and enjoy it and just go with the flow. You can keep using your pencil on a vertical plane to check the sort of measurement against other objects. Now for the eyes, I'm using like a dark brown and then burnt sienna, and just use that combination to start with. Just basic colours really, you don't have to worry too much about, like I say, the colours being correct. It's all about getting things in the right place. Great thing about using grey board is that you can use it as an advantage because you can put less pressure on that white to create like a light grey and more pressure for whiter areas. So you can use the colour of the board to get the correct sort of feel to it. And then you use that as part of the colour saturation, so you can desaturate the colour by putting less colour on there and use that grey as a part of the colour if you like. Right, for the ear then, I'm using burnt sienna, yellow ochre and brown, just basically just to get that tone in there. All this will change when I start putting the rich colours in, which is the next stage. Like I say, it's basically just getting the shapes right. So I'm just using the white here, just get that shape of the actual movement of the fur, and then just glaze over certain colours. Basically that's all it is. It's just reshaping things, making sure everything's correct. If you're enjoying this video, why not subscribe? It's absolutely free, and then you're sure not to miss any of my future videos. I'm just going to speed this section up because I've just explained to you what I've been doing. So this will give me loads more time to do real time for you on the rich colour stage, which is the next stage coming up. Now this stage, the underdrawing, is one of my favourite stages because you can really relax and just free flowing with it. It's a chance to actually be loose with your drawing as well. And even though you're doing a loose drawing, you're actually connecting to the energy and the feeling of the subject. Now there's a little trick in doing this, is to actually open the heart, let go of the mind, because the mind likes to control things and you get a tunnel vision with the mind. But if you open up, you see loads more and you feel loads more energy. And so rather than looking at the actual photograph too much, let it come into you. So draw that image from inside rather than outside. It sounds a bit strange, but it does make a difference because you start to feel the personality more. You see colours more as well. That opens up the colours, you know, by connecting to the art. You see all these subtleties and just let it flow through you, and it's a beautiful feeling when you connect to this. Right, here's the colours I'll be using for the dark areas of the painting. Now this is the rich colour stage. Now this is all about getting the value right and the chroma and the colour temperature, and all the details are put on at the last stage, the final subtleties. There's a certain amount of detail you put in on this stage, but you leave the really fine touches till the last when everything's in. Just continue to the side of the eye there where it's really dark, so I'm picking out the really darkest darks and putting those in. Again, I'm still measuring even at this stage, just double check and make sure everything's alright. With the eyes as well, the highlight in the pupil is the whitest white normally, so you could work on both here. So it gives you a gauge then of what the values are in between. So if you get the extremes in first, it gives you a good chance of getting it correct, the rest of it. Now I'm using that blue again, sort of like a Prussian blue type colour, mixing that in with the black. It creates a deeper black, it gives it more depth to it. Putting burnt sienna in there to give it some warmth. Now mixing in with a bit of dark brown as well, which creates a darker burnt sienna really, which are what I'm looking for. Sometimes you just have to play and just to see what works. I'm doing the same with the nose, put that highlight in first and then start working on the actual subtleties of the nose. Now I'm putting little small circles, trying to get some sort of texture in there as well. I'm using the brown again and the blue together to create subtle greys. So what I tend to do is put the white down, get the sort of value, then glaze over the top. And then just keep working backwards and forwards. So when you start putting more colour in, you might need to go even a little bit more darker in them sort of dark areas by adding like a blue or red. Gone so far with the details on the nose, so now I'll go into another area to try and get that sort of feeling right, and keep sort of spreading across the actual portrait and getting a balance all the time. So I'm always trying to create a oneness with the actual painting. Now in the nose now I'm putting little subtleties in, little dots here and there, just to create some interest. Just putting light pressure on that white just creates a tint, you know, just a subtle tint, and then you can just glaze over with the blues and browns and what have you. It's just a case of just sort of keep going backwards and forwards until you get the right sort of feel to it. Now, for the rich colours in Tilly's coat, I'm using these Cairn dash pencils. Basically what they are flesh colour tints. It's yellow ochre mixes really, so like you've got like a yellow ochre and white mix, which this one is, then you've got like different proportions of red in it and maybe a little bit of blue. So it's just a different tonal values, but the similar sort of thing. Rather than me mixing, you know, like using white, yellow ochre, I'm also just use the colour. So if you've got the colour that is similar, you might also use it, and then just subtle it up over with the other colours. So what I'm doing here is putting that down, and then going over with the burnt sienna and that blue I mentioned earlier. Now, because it's a soft coat, I'm using a earbud there just to help soften it up a little bit. Gets rid of that grain. And then just go over it again then with the richer colour. Now to see the value, squint your eyes, and to see colour, open your eyes. So the more you open, the more colour you see, and the more you squint your eyes, the more value you see. So you got to flip from the one to the other. But opening the heart, really opening your heart, will enable you to actually see more colour, because it kicks in awareness rather than when you're thinking. It's more tunnel vision. When you're awareness, you see loads of things all at once, where if you think about something, you can only think about one thing at a time. So I'd suggest keeping in awareness by being connected to the here and now. Just let go, don't have any expectations, no memories, and just really connect to the energy and the feeling of what you're doing, and in this case it's Tilly. To create the natural colour of the coat, I'm using the flesh tint plus the blue and white. So flesh tint's like an orangey colour, so you use complementary colour with it. It creates a natural shadow. So you mix in these colours rather than trying to pick different colour greys out your box, because it's very difficult to find the colour you're looking for. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all my patrons for their wonderful support every month. I really appreciate it. It means the world to me. Can't thank you enough. If you're considering joining me on Patreon and would like the benefit of longer, slower and more in-depth videos, please check out the link in the description below for more details. Now I'm going to speed it up in places, but I'm also going to give snippets of real time, just explaining certain areas, so stick with it because there's loads of information to come. Now these shadowy areas here, I'm using the same combination of pencils I've used for the light areas, but I'm putting more pigment down and putting more blue with the orange and burnt sienna to create that natural shadowy look. Slowing it down to real time now, just to show you the pace I work at, and also how I just take my time and always keeping a connection of the whole thing. Even though I'm working on this area here, I'm spreading my awareness, just mapping it out, just going with the flow and just letting it just happen. If you're finding yourself getting sort of lost in the detail and it's starting to get a little bit intense, best thing to do is just put your pencils down, go into another room, keep quiet for a while, about 5-10 minutes, then come back all afresh. Just center yourself into the heart, relax, and then you'll find it'll just be straightforward again. Just slowing it down to real time now, so you can see how I'm putting the richer colours in there now. There's certain areas in the coat where it's really vibrant and sort of a lot of chroma to it. So I'm putting more pigment down, so I'm using that flesh colour tint from Cairn Dash, then using the sort of lemon yellow with it and burnt sienna, and then if I need to desaturate it a little bit just to make it a subtle, it's like a tonal value on it, just add that bit of blue. As I mentioned, I try and work as a whole, so I might be working on one part and all of a sudden I'll go somewhere else that needs attention. So best to sort of go with instincts if you feel that something needs doing, because when you alter one thing, it subtly changes another, so it needs attention. Here's a little bit of real time, just showing you how I'm putting those dark whiskers in there. Just taking my time with it, keeping that pencil nice and sharp. If you're enjoying this video, why not give it a like and share it with your friends? It would mean so much to me, as this would help the channel to grow. I'm just slowing it down to show this part now, I'm getting the glow to it, is using that sort of burnt sienna, the lemon yellow, and that flesh tint as a combination, and a bit of brown in there for the shadows, and that seemed to have done the trick really. Now I've sussed out how to put the rich colours in the head part. I'm doing the same now in the body, so just going through with the light flesh colour tint, putting that down and then glazing over these colours over the top. Now here it needs to be really rich, so I put plenty of pigment down to create that sort of chroma we're looking for, and then just basically keep going over it. Just slowing it down to real time again, just to show you this pencil I picked out my Carbothello box, 620 it is, and it just seemed to be the perfect colour really when I looked at it. It would just had that little bit of yellow in it rather than the burnt sienna being a bit too red, and it made it quite a lot more sort of brighter and fresher. So I worked that into the rest of the painting as you can see carrying through now, just adding that little bit of that colour into it. It created that subtlety I was looking for. Now for the final details. Now I use a bob stick for this, something to lean on. So I use it for an oil painting, so it's just a piece of metal rod there with a cushioned bit on the end. But it's ideal for this sort of thing. But what I tend to do with the details is look at the whole painting and see what needs to be sorted by what needs to be subtler. The colours need to be correct, the edges, also some edges needs to be softer, some needs to be sharper, and overall getting the balance, the values, the chroma, and just seeing how it feels really. Now looking in the mirror, see it from a different angle, also take a photograph on your mobile phone, see what that looks like. It all helps to sort of pick out things that needs to be balanced. Thank you so much for watching the video right till the end. Here's a look at the portrait at the correct angle rather than being in perspective on the easel. If you would like to see more of my work, please check out these links here. Take care.